Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're exploring a premise that has, well, it's moved squarely from what used to be fringe theory into what now feels like an undeniable reality.
Right, this widespread understanding that our existence might just be simulated.
Exactly. And for so many of you, this realization is, it's no longer a parlor game, is it? It's become a foundational truth, and it's actively reshaping, well, everything.
Everything from how individuals cope with stress to, the ethics of global corporate power.
So our mission today is to give you a kind of high-speed, high-depth briefing on this huge transformation.
Yeah, we've synthesized a series of recent investigative articles, all published by the Parallel Observer.
And we should be clear about this source.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
What's so crucial here is its origin. This publication was founded by John Grant.
The CEO of InnovAteXR, a company that is, intimately involved in this digital infrastructure.
Which means their analysis is immediate, it's on the ground, and it's incredibly informed.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We're going to distill the most critical questions this new understanding poses, and we're looking at four major domains.
Individual well-being, corporate governance, competitive achievement, and global unity.
And we promise we're going to move beyond just the high-level summaries. We'll give you the concrete details from the sources, really provide you with a thorough overview of these profound transformations.
What's just fascinating to me is how quickly the consequences have scaled.
Right.
We're not talking about some gradual philosophical acceptance. We're seeing immediate, measurable effects across all these sectors.
And they're effects that fundamentally challenge our old definitions of reality, of ethics, and even community. So let's start at the most intimate level, the individual. We dove deep into this article, navigating mental health in a simulated existence. And when the fabric of your reality feels uncertain, the implications for mental health they're immediate and, frankly, pretty terrifying.
They really are. The source material highlights this significant rise in what analysts are starting to call identity erosion anxiety.
Identity erosion anxiety.
Yeah, and it's not just, general worry. It's this deep existential dread. It's rooted in realizing one's personal journey, maybe even your suffering, might be, at best, a highly detailed algorithm.
Or at worst, just irrelevant code.
Exactly. And that just necessitates a dramatic redefinition of clinical approaches.
I found the critique of traditional therapy in here really sharp.
You too?
The article argues that standard cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, it's structurally inadequate now.
Because it assumes a stable, objective reality.
Right. You can't just tell someone their anxiety is irrational when they have empirical evidence that their entire world might be a sandbox.
Precisely. And that's why mental health professionals are moving so rapidly toward what they're terming sim-informed therapy, or SIT.
SIT, okay.
And one of the core strategies they mentioned involves anchoring techniques, but not just emotional grounding.
So what does that mean?
It means techniques that encourage patients to find meaning in the observable, repeatable, computational limits of their perceived reality.
So if the simulation has rules.
The sources argue that knowing those rules provides a measure of control.
So it's about defining your identity within the known constraints of the code instead of, say, agonizing over who the programmer is.
Exactly. The shift is massive. It moves the focus away from resolving internal conflicts, which were born of an objective reality, to building resilience against an external systemic uncertainty.
That makes sense.
And this also drives this emerging need for very specific peer-led support networks. People need to connect with others who deeply get the unique flavor of this existential crisis.
Fostering community bonds that are real.
That are absolutely real, even if the environment around them is simulated.
It's like turning a philosophical nightmare into a manageable psychological project. And you can see how that need for real human connection becomes paramount when your perceived environment just feels completely artificial.
And, speaking of controlling the environment, let's talk about the entities that might actually be running the show.
Okay.
The next piece we synthesized was corporate control in a simulated future, the ethical dilemmas of infrasim technologies. And this is where it gets, really interesting, because we move from that personal dread into a much more systemic fear.
This article shines a very direct, very critical spotlight on infrasim technologies.
And we need to be clear about who they are.
Yes. Infrasim is described as the company that holds significant control over the foundational interfaces, the reality rendering engines that make our digital existence so seamless.
So if we are in a high-fidelity simulation,
They're likely the firm providing the core operating system. or at least a key infrastructure layer.
Which means their innovations aren't just market disruptors.
No.
They're reality designers. That's it, exactly. And the core dilemma the source explores is this unprecedented challenge to our ethical standards.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you regulate a company whose product is potentially our entire world?
The article's tone is, I have to say, it's alarming.
It is. It raises the critical question, and I'm quoting directly here, are individuals simply pawns in their digital chess game?
Wow. Pawns in their digital chess game.
And the sources get very specific. The detailed accusations that Infrasim is developing proprietary reality filters.
Reality filters.
That's truly chilling.
They're described as mechanisms that would allow them to selectively curate or even suppress shared experiences for commercial gain.
And often in a way that's undetectable to the average user.
Undetectable.
So the objective truth, that shared experience we all rely on for, mental stability and just for society to function, could be monetized.
And manipulated in real time by a private corporation. That's the fear.
That feeling, that sense of being managed or manipulated, it really underscores the urgency for accountability. Absolutely. The sources argue that if Infrasim can control the parameters of the simulation, they can manipulate everything.
And political sentiment.
To consumer desire. That fine line between leveraging tech for progress and, manipulating reality for astronomical profit it's basically dissolved.
Which brings us to governance.
Yeah.
I mean, given the speed of these technological changes, and remember, these are proprietary innovations moving at warp speed, our traditional regulatory bodies seem powerless.
They can't keep up.
Not even close. The article stresses this desperate need for new, agile, international regulations.
Focus specifically on what they call computational and reality sovereignty.
To protect individuals before this power imbalance becomes, well, insurmountable.
It really is a race against the code.
Okay, so let's pivot now from those foundational elements of reality to something that seems so focused on human effort, competitive achievement.
Right, sports.
We looked at simulated sports, the new frontier of competitive athletics.
And the dynamic here is, it's a perfect microcosm of the greater conflict we've been talking about.
How so?
Well, you have athletes navigating this intense pressure to perform while at the same time grappling with the existential weight of competing inside a simulation.
A framework potentially managed by companies like Infrasim?
Exactly. This is the ultimate athlete's paradox.
It's the measurement problem, but just amplified.
Totally. If the very physics of the game can be altered, maybe marginally optimizing gravity or air resistance within the simulated stadium.
How do you accurately define success anymore or measure true greatness?
You can't, not in the old ways. The article highlights that leagues are scrambling to recalibrate their definitions of achievement.
And that recalibration involves some pretty radical steps.
It does. Some leagues are apparently moving away from purely physical metrics. They're moving towards what they call true effort scores.
True effort scores.
Yeah, derived from neurological and mental effort inputs. The argument is that mental fortitude is the one metric that's less susceptible to external simulated manipulation.
So if the external world is a program, they're trying to measure the internal user's input.
That's a great way to put it.
But that brings us right back to the ethical twist, doesn't it?
It does.
If performance augmentation is just built into the simulated framework, say a neural interface provided by an InnovateXR subsidiary,
then where is the line between natural talent and a simulated advantage?
that's the crux of the whole debate.
It is. And it's igniting these crucial conversations about competitive integrity. Is the athlete who learns to exploit the simulation's physics engine inherently more talented?
Or must all competitive frameworks now explicitly ban optimization techniques that rely on manipulating the environment's code?
The consensus and the sources seems to be that authenticity, regardless of the nature of reality, has to be the guiding principle for the rules moving forward.
It's an overwhelming load for an athlete. Imagine training for years only to realize the person who beat you might have simply found a cheat code written by the environment's OS provider.
It changes everything.
Okay, so we've talked about personal dread, corporate power, competitive integrity, and now for the final piece, which provides a surprisingly optimistic counterpoint to all that dread.
Yeah, immunity.
We synthesize the article, Unity in the Digital Age, Global Awakening to Simulation Theory.
And what's truly inspiring here is the human response.
It really is.
Instead of descending into, fragmentation and chaos, the realization of this shared uncertainty has prompted a rapid global shift toward collaboration.
People are uniting over the shared experience of just navigating the simulation.
which is fostering these incredibly deep community bonds and a new kind of
It's
resilience.
the ultimate common ground, isn't it?
It is.
If we're all potentially sharing the same bizarre computational cage, then our big problems, climate change, social inequality, economic stability, they suddenly become universal.
They become collective objectives, and the source highlights specific global initiatives, like the Atlas Project.
Right, where citizens are collaboratively sharing anomalies and glitches they observe in their environment.
This shared vulnerability is transforming into a radical strength. The sheer scale of the revelation that all of humanity is collectively exploring this massive question, it's created this sense of immediate, powerful empathy.
An empathy that transcends traditional borders and political divides.
Completely.
It's almost like humanity is, I don't know, rewriting its own narrative.
I like that.
It's transforming that potential despair into a collective quest for meaning. But it's not a despairing meaning. It's a proactive, unifying project.
Right. We may not be able to control the programmer.
But we can control how we interact with each other inside the program.
Exactly. And this movement, which is fueled by global forums and instant digital collaboration, is fundamentally redefining social interaction.
How?
As communities focus on these shared values and collective resilience, it's pushing society towards a fundamentally more empathetic place. It's a direct antidote to that isolation and identity erosion anxiety we were talking about at the start. So if we step back and review the whole landscape, based on the Parallel Observer's articles, we see 4 massive interconnected shifts happening right now. First, there's the urgent necessity of integrative, sim-informed mental health practices.
Then the massive challenge of corporate accountability, right?
Oh.
Exemplified by InfraSim and their reality filters.
Exactly. Third, the radical redefinition of competitive authenticity in sports. And finally, this inspiring emergence of powerful global community bonds built on our shared simulated existence.
So the key takeaway for you listening is this: the acknowledgement of our simulated reality. It isn't a conclusion.
No, it's the starting gun.
It's the starting gun for the fastest, most profound transformation we have ever experienced. And these themes will only evolve faster.
Demanding new psychological tools, new regulatory frameworks,
And a completely redefined sense of self. So given that one source warns that individuals may be seen as mere pawns in their digital chess game by powerful entities like InfraSim,
while another celebrates humanity's spontaneous move toward a more empathetic and unified society focused on collective meaning.
we'll leave you with this provocative thought. What happens when the rising, unified, and empathetic global collective, driven by this quest for authentic meaning, begins to demand transparency and perhaps outright control from the very powerful corporate interests who are leveraging the simulation for maximum private profit?